started as the dream of three men. Pilots Nigel Love and Jack Warneford from the Australian Flying Corps and aircraft engineer Harry Broadsmith.
And they came back to Australia with the hope and the intention to develop aviation in Australia.
Their dream was to build aircraft locally, and after scouring the Sydney area, it was decided that the perfectly flat bullock paddock at Mascot would become the centre of their operation. In November 1919, the first flight took off from Mascot, and 2 months later, in 1920, the aerodrome was officially opened. With the vastness of this continent, it was clear that Australian aviation was set to boom.
But there is no country in the world more suitable to aviation than Australia. We have these enormous distances, we have a low terrain, we have excellent visibility.
By the late 1920s, Mascot had become a busy flying centre, with hangars and workshops appearing all over the aerodrome. In just 7 years, passenger movement had increased almost tenfold. So in 1930, the government upgraded the aerodrome.
And it was a grazing paddock, you see. So it was nice and flat and thing, but when it rained it was full of puddles. And of course, they'd left the tannery on the edge of the field, and it was the most putrid smell you could imagine. So when you took off down to Botany Bay, and the wind was usually in the south or the southwest, that's the prevailing wind, and did your left-hand circuit, when you smelt the tannery, that was the time to make your base leg, come onto the base leg, and do a series of S-turns to get into the airfield, and scrape your tail over the fence.
During the war years, civil aviation gave way to military operations. Construction of aircraft and airport upgrades continued. In 1945, Qantas began operations in Sydney, and by the mid-1950s, Mascot was a busy international airport. It had well and truly become Australia's gateway to the world. In 1959, the first Qantas 707 touched down in Sydney. The jet age had arrived. Construction and technology upgrades to the airport, enhancing operations for the bigger jets, continued through the 1960s, and in 1970, Queen Elizabeth II opened Mascot's new international terminal. But by the end of the 1980s, the continued increase of air travellers meant that Sydney Airport had reached its capacity. The 90s saw the completion of the airport's third runway and major upgrades to terminals. And today, the airport can handle up to 134,000 passengers a day. And since privatisation in 2002, Sydney Airport has gone from strength to strength. It's consistently rated in the top 10 worldwide. From the early hours of the morning, teams of people all over the airport are preparing for 60% of the day's activities to happen between 6 and 11 a.m. Over 60,000 people are employed to meet the needs of almost 30 million travellers a year. And Sydney Airport contributes $6.6 billion to the New South Wales gross state product. It takes a huge network of technology and many skilled professionals to make Sydney Airport the clean, safe and secure transport hub that operates every day of the year. Security is a key priority at the airport. Now, every bag that leaves the country is screened, giving additional peace of mind to travellers and the public. Security and operations officers patrol the airfields 24 hours a day, ensuring the safety of all aircraft. Audits and system testing are regularly carried out to ensure that satisfactory security outcomes are always achieved. For 85 years, Sydney Airport has continued to contribute to the economy and the community, working with business, government, and many social and environmental groups. And we're looking ahead to the future. It's predicted that by 2024, over 68 million passengers will use the airport each year. This demand will see terminal and runway facilities improved to accommodate the new Airbus A380 and the Boeing Dreamliner. There'll also be improvements to on-airport accommodation, parking, freight handling facilities and food and beverage options throughout the domestic and international terminals. From humble bullock pasture to Australia's premier airport, Sydney Airport has been home to the nation's most inspiring aviators. It has welcomed visitors from heads of state to superstars. It has seen major technical and social change, and with continued development in all areas, Sydney Airport will keep pace with the changing needs of civil aviation and remain the gateway to Australia.